Mastering the art and skill of coaching. Hello, hello, confidence community. How are you doing? I'm so excited to be here with you today with Jessica DeMarchis. Just wave hi really quick.
Good
Yeah.
morning.
If you are struggling with feeling confident in your coaching shoes, today is the day for you because Jess really is a gift, and I'm so excited to have her here. So, before I go ahead and introduce Jess, I'll just introduce myself. Most of you know me, but some of you may not. I've got a lot of new friends here in the group. I'm Amy Colombo. I am the confidence coach for nurse coaches. I am an EFT practitioner and a single mother to three boys. And I'm so excited to have Jess here today. If you're here live with us, just say hello to us in the chat. Let us know that you're here. Drop your questions because she's going to answer them for us today. And if you're watching this on the replay, also drop the word replay and also drop your questions in here because she's going to be checking and I will give them to her as well. So mastering the art and skill of coaching. Jessica DeMarchis. Did I say that right?
It's DeMarchis, but it does
Okay.
look that way. Yeah, but it's deceiving. DeMarchis. So my name is Jess. I'm a trauma therapist turned coach trainer, and I've been in this industry for, I don't want to age myself, but like over a decade. And it's been super fun to kind of witness the field grow and change and shift. But yeah, I've done all the things. If you want a complete CV, email me. But I was a trauma therapist, I was a professor, registered yoga teacher, published research, done consulting with companies on trauma-informed coaching and leadership. Yeah, we've done a lot of things in the last like 13 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it, Jess, because your passion for the work really shows. And I just want to share, we met back, well, I met you back first, back in 2021. You had done a workshop on confidence. It was a confidence workshop. We were all brand new nurse coaches, like in this coaching container, in this business coaching container for nurse coaches. And I remember you came in and I watched you. It was virtual. And I was like, I couldn't get enough. It was just such great information. And then you brought in some hypnotherapy at the end, and you talked about like some of the things that you're going to talk about today, some of the coaching modalities that you teach. And then I remember like I was like, I have to follow you. So I got on your podcast, and we had even gotten on a consult call back
Mhm.
then. And then cut to 2024, you and I ended up in a container together. And that was just the coolest thing for me. I was a little bit like kind of excited that you were in a container with me. And now we've connected in a different kind of a way. And here you are. So I'm just really appreciative of you doing this live for me and serving my community because I think that you're a gift to them here today.
Mm.
And with that, I want to start off by you kind of sharing a little bit of your story. I know you gave us your vital statistics, but you know, just tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a therapist and then what led you to shifting into coaching and maybe even shine a little light on that question that we all have trouble answering, like what is the difference between therapy and coaching, right? I would just love to hear your take on all of this.
Okay, well, buckle up. Um, so, without getting into too much detail, I am a trauma survivor myself. I've had multiple and complex and chronic trauma my entire childhood because of circumstances outside of my control and family dynamics. And so, when I was in high school, I was introduced to an organization that really changed the trajectory of my life. I was introduced to the field of social work for the first time, and it really spoke to me. It just was something that I felt I wish I had. And it was almost like this gut feeling that it was like, you need to become a social worker. So I worked really hard, and education was my out. And I went to college, I studied social work, And very early on, like within my freshman year, I knew I wanted to be a therapist. I knew I wanted to work with children and families. I knew I wanted to work with Hispanic population. It just was very clear. And I didn't know at the time, but training to become a therapist, it made sense afterwards. I really was trying to heal myself by healing others.
Yeah.
And but that all led me to becoming a licensed trauma therapist with a graduate degree by like 22, 23. Like I was very, very young. But I had a knack for it and I was really good because I just was so convicted to the practice and so um, just grateful for the tools that I was learning because I was using them simultaneously with my clients and with myself. And it was so healing. And so I just had so much confidence in what I was doing. But behind the scenes, simultaneously, I was paying for my college with a sales job. I ran a branch of a marketing firm. And in that corporation, they were very big on coaching. And so I was 18 years old and I put $6,000 on a credit card, took out my first credit card ever, and I maxed it out to hire this coach that they encouraged all the leaders to have. And I just drank the Kool-Aid and was like, okay, well, all the leaders are doing this and they're making a lot of money and I need money. I have tuition, so let me do it. And I always had a coach ever since I was like 18, and I always invested in myself. And I just realized the parallel between the two fields and how they complemented each other. And I just always had the thought in the back of my head that I'm going to become the best therapist I can be, but I am going to eventually transition into this field of coaching. And I'm going to improve the level of coaching with my background, and I'm going to be a better therapist because of all the coaching I've had simultaneously in my training. And so I made the transition fully from therapy to coaching when I was about mid to late 20s. And the reason I made that transition is because I had peaked in my therapy career really early on. I was a supervisor, I was training graduate level therapists, I was doing continuing education classes, I was getting grant funding to do research, I was speaking at organizations. I had reached multiple letters. I had an alphabet soup under behind my name at the age of like 26. And I really felt capped also financially and time-wise in my field. And so I was like, it's time to transition. And so I was doing coaching part-time all throughout my 20s, but in 2027, I went full-time as a coach. And ever since then, we've been evolving our offerings. And in 2022, we launched the Art and Skill of Coaching, which is now what we do primarily is train and certify coaches.
Okay. You meant in 2017 you went full time as a coach.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You said 2027 and I caught that. I was like, wait a minute. It's 2025, right?
Yes. Yes. 2017.
Well, aside from that, wow, powerful story, Jess, and it just aligns. It aligns with, how people perceive you because you do have this amazing confidence about you and you are very intelligent and you do really know your stuff. And I can see that when you were telling your story, the word Doogie Howser was coming to mind a little bit, like you're a young protege.
Yeah.
So I just find that fascinating and even more fascinating that you're investing in yourself at such a young age. That's really a testament to, how far you've come with
Yeah.
coaching. And where I want to go to next, for the nurse coaches that are watching, I want you to share what are some of the most common challenges that coaches face when they're building their confidence in their coaching skills. And maybe shine a light on some of their blind spots, but really speak to those pain points that they're coming in with. Because I know, like, what I'm hearing for sure, like, just recently I coach nurse coaches and she's been coaching for years and all of a sudden she's like I feel like I need something more. I
Mhm.
find that nurse coaches always feel like they're not enough in their coaching shoes, in their one-to-one coaching containers. So yeah, just speak to some of those challenges, please.
Yeah. Well, I think in particular licensed professions, this is what I've noticed, nurses, doctors, therapists, teachers, um, they have a tough time transitioning into coaching because the way that their training and education happened was that it was A, B, C, D, E, and you'll get F. period. And
Yes.
everyone follows the same exact linear trajectory. And coaching isn't as structured and regulated yet. And so it can be really overwhelming. And they're trying to repeat the same process. And when it doesn't happen, they kind of fumble. And so I think that missed expectation and the difficulty of being new and not having clear linear steps can be really overwhelming and cause a lot of people to stumble, particularly nurse coaches. And I think they try to rush and scramble and find those steps versus just trust the process. And when I say trust the process, I do mean that there is a process. And so there's something called the learning theory, which is the four stages to becoming a master in anything. And so stage one is unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know, which is where we are when we get into the field. We are so excited. We just had our own transformation, or we just found this thing that is new and aligned with our values, and we just jump in, which is beautiful, right? And what's so cool about coaching is the barrier to entry is so low. And so you can jump in. You don't need a PhD.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need a
Yeah.
psychology degree. You don't need to go to med school. You can just jump right in. But then you jump in, you get a couple clients, and maybe you don't know what to say. Or maybe a client throws a curveball at you, or maybe they're dissatisfied, or maybe they don't like your intervention, or maybe you don't connect with them and you're not able to leverage that relationship. And you kind of have that like, oh shit moment, right? And that is conscious incompetence when you're aware of what you don't know. And that is very overwhelming. And a lot of times people will quit here. But then there's those individuals who will pursue. And how they try to fix that lack of confidence is by consuming information, by learning new things, by getting all the letters. This was me, getting all the letters, all the trainings, all the certifications over and over and over again. But what ends up happening is when their intention is to not feel inferior, they get stuck here. And
Mm,
instead of doing it and building their confidence and getting better, they do it and it fuels their inferiority and they
yeah.
actually grow their lack of confidence. And so the fourth stage to actually building confidence is having the courage to not only learn information, but apply it and get feedback, right? And be able to practice until you know it deeply. You can do it without getting it wrong, and you're actually competent in something. It's now wisdom, it's now an ingrained skill set. And you do that over and over again until you build mastery. Right. And so this is where confidence actually happens. And so I think, again, the missed expectation, number one, and number two, understanding that courage and action comes before competence and confidence, not the
Mm,
other way around. And so
yes.
that's what I would say for people who are like newer and struggling, particularly with confidence. You gotta manage those expectations and not rush this process.
Yes. Thank you. And the bells were like going off in my head just because in that stage three, it just reminds me of like almost like the more you know, the less you know. So you're trying to consume that information and learn, and then you just feel worse at a certain point. Um, And, what my client said to me that was bringing this in the other day was she said, she goes, I just wish there was someone that could literally watch me coach and give me feedback. And Jess, full disclosure, when she said that, I was like, shit, me too. Like, like I really want that. And I love that you're providing that in your program. And, I almost feel like I kind of want to ask these questions and get to your program, but I feel like this is the perfect opportunity for you to share like in your program, right? The art and skill of coaching, like how you help people with that specifically.
Yeah, so I remember when I was training to be a therapist, and early on, there's a lot of theory. You have to understand human psychology before you can intervene. And that was a really frustrating process for me because the theory wasn't tangible. And I was like, okay, I understand this. That makes sense. I can kind of be able to piece it together to understand why they're doing what they're doing or they're not doing what they're doing. But what do I do now? How do
Mm,
I get them to the next level? How do I disrupt that negative belief or how do I heal that trauma? I wanted the tangibility. And so that's why I went to graduate school. And in graduate school, which was really cool, is that there was a lot of application, not just stage 3, consuming information, but stage 4, practicing it until you can't do it wrong. We had labs as therapists where they would record us. We had labs where we would be in double-sided mirror rooms with a mic in our ear and with clients, and they would tell us, uncross your legs, fix your face, go in this direction, use this theory, like, and sit down. And then when I was training to be a therapist, even after I graduated, there was 3 years where I had weekly supervision, where we would watch portions of my session. They would sit in on different sessions and audit me. And that was where the learning was exponential. So when I decided to start training coaches, I was like, this is it. This is the missing piece. I need to not only give them theory, but I need to give them tangible tools and force them at a stage 3 and a stage 4 by practicing and give them individualized feedback so they know what they're doing right and where their areas of improvement are. And it's different for everyone. Everyone has their own unique style and their own unique strengths. And I want to build them up versus just like speaking to the masses. And so one of the elements of the art and skill of coaching is we have trainings. We have group coaching where you watch the interventions live, but then we also have peer coaching where you practice and I audit those sessions. I go
Mhm.
in and I watch you coach and I give you individualized feedback from beginning to end of the session. And you get that 2 times in our program, towards the beginning and towards the end. And it's really beautiful because you can always see the difference between audit 1 and audit 2 in their growth. Think it's not just because of what they learned, but because they got to practice and because they got to implement feedback specific to them. And so that's one of the training structures inside of the art and skill of coaching and where it came from.
I love that. Okay. And like what was coming up for me as a nurse is this reminds me of nursing school in clinicals. We would, get watched at doing those skills. And I remember, it was very nerve-wracking. However, it was the thing that catalyzed your learning. You combine that practice and hands-on with a professional watching you and giving you that live feedback in the moment. And Jess, what's so interesting is nurses are leaving an industry where everything is so regulated and we're told what to do from like you said A B C D E equals F, and we long for this freedom, and then when we come into nurse coaching we don't know what to do with this freedom, exactly like what you said, and you almost want someone to come in and tell you what to do, like my client the other day saying I just want someone to watch me and tell me what to do, right? So I love this. This is amazing. And I know that all the nurses watching are going to like resonate with this because it just reminds us of that practical, hands-on clinical part of our nursing education that we're not getting in coaching. Because I know, the coaching school that I came from, they did not watch us coach. They didn't do that. And then even when I got my EFT prac, I was writing up sessions and they would take me hours to write up, Jess, like hours. But again, nobody was watching me coach. Um, so yeah, so that's amazing. And where I want to go to next is one of the things that all coaches struggle with, resistance. I just want you to speak to this. I want to hear your take on this. Like, how do you handle resistance in the container? Because, a lot of coaches, luckily, I have learned about resistance and how normal it is, and it's a part of the process. But I feel like we can all always use more tools. But I hear a lot of coaches almost mistake that resistance is a big problem.
Yeah.
And they almost think like that they're not a match for their coaching clients because of resistance. So just speak to resistance.
First off, you nailed it. So I just want to amplify
Hmm.
what you're saying. Resistance is actually a good thing. If there's no resistance, there's no growth. Think about it. Like I'm a big gym rat. And so if I'm not shaking, I'm not growing the muscle. I'm not reaching muscle failure. If I don't increase the weight and am not able to do as many reps, I'm not growing the muscle. So resistance is signifying that we're growing. And so as a coach, like that's a good thing. If your client is showing resistance, That is a good thing. Now, let me clarify before I give a couple tools on how to work with resistance. There's a difference between resistance because someone's growing, and that's where the role of the coach really shines. This is not your opportunity to step down, it's your opportunity to lean in, and unwillingness. Okay.
Mm,
Unwillingness, we might want to screen for that and let them know that, hey, this might not be the best fit. It is going to be very difficult to coach someone who is unwilling. Okay. And what
yes.
that sounds like is not, I'm having difficulty, I'm struggling, I'm unsure, this is hard, I didn't hit the goal exactly, or I'm getting distracted, or I don't know if I can do it, my confidence is low. Like that's resistance. Unwillingness is, I don't want to do that. Nope, nope, I'm not going to get up. Well, can I just do it only 3 times? Like that's unwillingness versus resistance is there's a want and a desire and maybe even a need, but they're getting stuck on their own. So, number one, resistance is normal. Number two, be able to discern the difference between resistance and unwillingness. Now, if you're having resistance as a coach, you should internally clap because that's a good thing. They're on the brink of something, and it's your job to really be able to manage that. And so, number one, I really like to roll with resistance and remind the client that they have choice here. So, what that might sound like is, okay, yeah, I totally hear you. It is getting dark early and it is really cold right now. And the last thing you probably want to do after a work day is squeeze in a 30-minute workout. And that is completely your choice if you want to take those 30 minutes to move your body or take those 30 minutes to sit down, knowing that that's going to contribute to the lethargic feeling you have. So, what do you think is really the best choice for you today?
Mm,
So I'm not judging them. I'm not pushing them. I'm not blaming. I'm just rolling with it. I hear you. And this is your choice. When a client can take responsibility for their portion of the problem, they're more likely to take responsibility for their portion of the solution. And
mm,
so that's very important for you to not be afraid of the resistance, but not to fuel it or try to pretend it's not there or shut it down. Roll with it and remind the client that they have choice. And then one thing that I love to do, and I actually teach this inside of the Art and Skill at Coaching, is create something called internal discrepancy. So if you've done your due diligence, you should know your client's core values. And in that moment when resistance is coming up for the client, if you know their core values, you can engage in a conversation style that will create discrepancy between what they're doing currently and the result that they're striving towards. And how you bridge that gap is by reminding the client of their values and how they're violating their values by engaging in this current behavior. And that, when done skillfully, can create enough discomfort because of that discrepancy that it's actually motivating for the client. And they can do the mental gymnastics to work through the resistance to take the action that's in alignment with their values, and that's going to get them closer to their desired result. Again, that's a skillful conversation, but really what you want to be able to do is identify where they're at, where they're wanting to go, and how acting in alignment with their values is not happening, but could be happening to facilitate discomfort and choice. So those are my thoughts about resistance. I could nerd out, and we do inside of the certification on resistance because a lot well, we have an entire training on how to get clients unstuck because this is a learning curve for a lot of people entering this industry from other professions, which is totally fine. It's not a you problem. Hear that. It's not a you problem. You don't suck as a coach. It's just a skill, a learning curve you have. So we solve for that in there, but those are my like big picture tips on resistance.
I I love that. I love your take on resistance. And I just want to say that in my EFT certification, they taught us to welcome it in. And call it like the adorable resistance and to look at it as just a part of them. So I really have learned to roll with it, or as I call, validate it and treat it like any other emotion that I would be validating. I love core values. Core values, Jess, I actually make every one of my clients do a core values worksheet from the jump, and I bring them in whenever they're having difficulty making a tough decision. And I always say that that song, if I could give the world a Coke, I always said if I could give the world like one thing to do that would change their lives, it would be this core values assessment. Because when you decide to live fiercely in alignment with your core values, then you are literally becoming the person that you admire, that you aspire to be, right? So there's nothing better than that. And I love that. I love shining a light on it. And I really appreciated you defining the difference between resistant and unwilling, right? Because that really actually was an aha moment for me and just made me think specifically of a client that I was struggling with so much and realize that, oh, it was more than resistance, it was unwillingness. But wow, can that really cause a lot of emotional trial and trib for the coach? So
Yes.
thank you so much for that. That is so helpful. And just speak to a little bit, hang on one second. Okay. How can coaches balance compassion and empathy, right, with directness? And you almost kind of like spoke to it a little bit, but just speak to that.
Yeah. This is hard. This is so hard. Um, but and I have an entire podcast episode on this. You might have to scroll back a little bit, but I think how you balance it is by remembering what your role is. Your role is a coach, not a friend. And I know that that sounds like, yeah, Jess, okay, moving on, but hear me out. Your role as a coach is to help the client get a result. They are investing time, money, and energy in you, your process, your skill set to help them do something that they haven't been able to do on their own. If you are overly empathic and supportive and can over understand their experience and get in the mud with them, you're no longer helpful.
Mm,
A portion that makes coaching so helpful is that you can remain as unbiased as possible on the bank of the shore versus in the water with them. You hold them accountable. You keep them anchored into their commitment. You remind them what they're doing and why it's important to them. You help expand them to new possibilities. You help them reframe their thinking to what's possible. You help them really focus on what they can do to move forward. And even if they're not sprinting forward, but they're stumbling forward, you're in there with them. You are a step ahead of them. That's your role as the coach. And so, yes, it's important to be attuned to your client. It's important to have compassion and empathy, which is just the ability to understand, but you don't want to over understand where now you're enmeshed with the client and you're in it with them. And now you're just commiserating and being supportive and enabling them. You've lost your role and your influence as a coach.
mm,
Your job is to hold them accountable. Your job is to expand them past their current capacity. Your job is to help them stay in that committed place even when it's hard. And so I think just remembering your role as a coach and that sometimes that requires creating discomfort, creating discrepancy, creating accountability, saying the hard thing. Your job is to be kind, not nice. So I'm from Philly, just to bring this analogy home. I'm from Philly, but I live in Raleigh, North Carolina now. And this is how I explain it to people. I feel like people in Philly are kind. They're not nice. And people in North Carolina are nice but not kind. And this is a generalization and kind of like a funny metaphor. But the difference is that, in Philly, if I get a flat tire on the side of the road, an old man might pull over and be like, how you don't know how to change a tire? You're on the side of 95. This is dangerous. Move. And he'll change my tire in the snow. He won't be nice about it, but he'll be that in the snow, in rush hour, in the dangerous situation, and an inconvenience of his time, he will help me. Right. And then in North Carolina, they might roll down the window and be like, sweetie, you all right? And I'll be like, yeah, I called AAA. They'll be like, oh, okay, have a blessed day. And they'll keep it moving. They are not being inconvenienced. They are not offering, they're not pulling over. They're not anything, right? Creating a buffer between me and the road. Again, this is a silly analogy, no offense meant. But as a coach, you want to be kind, not nice. You want to be a coach, not their friend. You want to remain in leadership, not in it with them. And so I think that I know it's not like a technical way to manage that, but I think just switching into that role will help you say and do the right thing in the moment.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, how, Jess, how? Like the how is coming up because I just want to comment that as you were talking, I was like, yes, yes, yes. And I want to say my biggest work, what I have learned is preparing myself to not swim in the pool with them because you
Yes.
can easily get caught in the tide, right? So I have learned now I'm going in year 4 and I really have learned how important it is for me to get solid and set myself up to not swim in the pool with them. So maybe just one, just like one little
Okay, I'll
how,
give you one.
just one.
I'm going to give you one, but I'm not going to feed the hell frenzy because I
Yes,
listen as an individual from a licensed profession. That was like my one thing. Professors would say something like, "Yes, but how?" They'd be like,
right.
"Jeff, figure it out," and I'm like, "But just give me the answer. I'm good at following directions. I'll do it." So here's two hows. I'll give you one thing to say and one thing to do. So for you, energetically, you need to manage the boundary. You want to be with your client, not in it with your client. And so I really like to energetically, before I get on a call, get into a position of leadership and imagine my energy as semi-permeable. I can receive information and I can give information, but there is a door that you have to knock, and I get to choose to let you in or not. And so again, I can energetically be there with you and I can give and receive, and it's semi-permeable, but I have control over what's coming in and out. And the reason I do that is because I do want there to be a boundary so that I can show up in leadership as the coach versus like dip down in energy when the client comes in with something. Okay.
Hmm.
That makes sense. Like, and like energy likes energy, and the
Perfect
person with the
sense.
highest energy will always win. And so I make sure that I'm coming in here and that I'm staying here. Okay.
Yes. So
So
vital.
energetically, that's what I would do. Now, tangibly, this is really simple, but I would always just ask for permission before, like if I'm teetering that line and I'm like, oh my God, they're not going to like me, or oh, this is hard, or I don't want to hold them accountable, or I don't want to point this out, or I don't want to, whatever. I might just say, hey, Amy, I'm noticing something. It might sting a little bit to hear, but I feel like as the coach, I want to point it out to you, and let's talk about it. And you'll be like, yeah, of course. So I've noticed that it has been difficult over the last 3 weeks because of external circumstances to make it to the gym. And I get that. And it's been 21 days. There's always been something. What I can tell you is there will always be something. And so, what are the somethings that you're going to continue to allow to get in the way of you hitting your health goals?
Mhm. I'd be like, oh shit, she just called me out and right, but it's like I want to say, Jess, there's an energy to that. It's powerful.
Yes.
That's what I mean, even just me here, and this is like role play, felt powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not blaming you. I'm not judge. I'm not anything. I'm asking for permission. I'm letting you know it might sting so you're prepared, but I'm saying it with love. I'm talking about the behavior. I'm not attacking the person, and I'm putting the power in the client, not in the circumstance. I'm
Yes.
facilitating choice, I'm creating discrepancy, and I'm believing in them and I'm moving them towards the desired result that I believe they're capable of. And I'm staying in the role of coach to hold them to that versus getting in it with them about it's hard, it's cold, your kid was sick, your husband had to work over, you had a work trip, and yes, and right. So it seems seamless now. It did take me a little bit of practice, but when I learned this conversation style, I was able to pick it up within a few months because I was constantly practicing it. And inside of the art and skill of coaching, we teach this conversation style, and it's actually very early on so that you have ample time to practice it.
Yeah. I mean, that was amazing, Jess. I think, my personal observation of you is you're very, very skilled at teaching. I mean, just the way you explained that to me, it just sunk in a little bit deeper than how I already know. I feel like I'm benefiting the most from this conversation right now because I'm right here with you. Um, all right. Well, with that, let's see. I want you to share about the art and skill of coaching. And I want you to tell us about the art and skill of coaching. Let's go there first, and then we'll end with a last question about a mindset shift that they can take with us, but really tell us because I just want to say that after having this conversation with you, I'm excited. For me, Jess, you were speaking right to me. Your posts with exactly where I was at. And, truth be told, I had, one client experience of hardcore resistance, unwillingness, and swimming in the pool with her and struggling, Jess. I actually was noticing, I know all about, matching and mirroring nervous systems. And I was going in ready to be the strong nervous system, and I would just inevitably get pulled down. It was really interesting. And I was like, I need some hard coaching skills. Like, I need them. And you were just speaking right to me. And I was like I got on a call with you and I signed up. I can't wait to start. But, I don't see anything else out there like what you are putting out. And, coaching skills, like talking about these things and and there's a process to them. There's a process to holding empathy with directness, right? Like the way you were just explaining. So I'm so freaking excited to come
Yeah.
in and I
Yeah.
want you to just speak about it a little bit.
Yeah. So just to kind of reflect what you said, and then we could talk a little bit about ASC, the art and skill of coaching. Um, I think what ends up happening is people enter these trainings or they follow certain coaches or they listen to podcasts, and for that coach, it just seems innate and they try to regurgitate what the coach said on sessions with their clients. And when it doesn't land or resonate, or a client says something that is unexpected, the coach kind of stumbles a little bit because they don't know what to do next. And so what I'm doing inside of the art and skill of coaching is I'm not just teaching you what to say, I'm training you on what's happening and how you can intervene. And so I do give you scripts, but you're able to implement the scripts seamlessly because you just don't know what to say, you know why you're saying it, right? So for example, like that role play we just did, for me it felt seamless, not because I was trying to remember exactly what to say. I was understanding what was happening and what were the main objectives, and I was able to come up with something that hit that process.
Hmm.
That makes sense.
It makes sense. I mean, you really have a really deep understanding of what you're doing and why. You're not just in a container asking tons of questions.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's what ends up happening. Like coaches will come in with a list of questions and they'll say it and they'll say it, and then they'll stumble because they're like, I don't know where to go next or what's happening, or right. Versus, okay, here's the framework, here's the process of a session, of a coaching container, of, you know, disrupting and creating a new belief. And it's not necessarily this is what I say next. It's here are the stages, here's the process. Let me just follow this. And I teach that. So that's what we do inside of the art and skill of coaching. That's why it's called the art and skill of coaching. It's a 6-month training program for coaches who are in the practice and are really enjoying it and are connecting with their clients and want to be better. They want more science in their practice. They want more structure. They want more skills in addition to their soft skills or a couple things they picked up along the way, or leveraging their energy or their personal experience or their relationship. They want more structure and interventions and tangible tools and techniques. And that's what we do. We teach you the top coaching
Yes, that's what
techniques.
I want.
Yes.
That's why I'm there.
We teach you the top coaching techniques that are from peak performance coaching, but also based in psychology, right? Because regardless of what you're doing, whether it's a weight loss coach, health coach, mindset coach, energy coach, relationship coach, it doesn't matter, business coach, it doesn't matter. The client has a human brain. And so we can take the result out and just look at the process. And if you have the skills to move clients through that process of growth and change and development, then you can just add in your expertise, whether it's hormones or fitness or like relationships or confidence. Like you can just add your little fairy dust on there. What we do inside of the art and skill of coaching is we give you the foundational processes, systems, structures, and skills to work with every client on a really deep level. Everything's backed by science. And not only do we teach you but we train you with all those other elements we talked about before, such as group coaching, peer coaching, audits, and everything's live too. Like I'm in there, kind of like a residency or a lab or a clinical. You're going to get very hands-on, um, tangible experience with everything that we're teaching so that you leave feeling, again, not just like you consumed a bunch of information stage 3, but you feel like you've practiced it and that you feel very confident and capable of implementing it.
Love that. Love that. And what about for the newer coaches, like kind of just got out of school or just getting their coaching legs on? And I do want to speak to something I tell my coaching because they're all coaches is, you can coach anyone in the beginning. You can coach anyone because you're not an expert on any one thing. You are a coach and you know the coaching process, and you can take any client in any problem, in any circumstance through the coaching process. And that is actually hard for newer coaches to understand. They think they need to be an expert in cancer or an expert in food and nutrition to be able to coach on those things. So just speak to, is your program for newer coaches that are just, getting out of a school and like just learning?
So the way we design the program, it's for newer and or experienced coaches. The program builds upon itself. So in the beginning, we really pride ourselves on giving you everything you need from start to finish. So there is a bunch of pre-work that takes it all the way back to what's your client, what's your coaching philosophy, what's your coaching offering, what's your consultation process, what's your onboarding process. We give you all of that to make sure
Mm,
that you have the foundation that when we start diving into the techniques and tools and skills and interventions that are built upon each other, everyone's on the same journey and it gets more advanced, right? But we make sure that no one gets left behind.
mm,
So it's a little bit of review for coaches who have been coaching for years. We obviously add a lot more because we have depth to our training. So even though coaches are like, oh, I've heard this before, now I actually understand what it is and how it works. And I have all these nuances to it. So even experienced coaches are learning, but new coaches don't get left behind because we do start foundationally.
yeah.
And everything builds upon each other. And that's why it's 6 months too. When I first launched this program years ago, it was only 3 months because I only did the advanced stuff. But I realized even the experienced coaches were like, yeah, but I'm not understanding why I would do this.
Mm.
So then I went back and I was like, all right, let's build this baby out. And so we have everything you need from start to finish. So newer coaches, experienced coaches, everyone's going to benefit.
Awesome. I love it. I can't wait. I'm so excited. So tell us when this program starts and how people can connect with you if they're interested, because you actually have an open launch cart going right now, right?
Yeah. So enrollment's open right now. We run the certification twice a year because it's 6 months long. We have a spring class and a fall class. Our spring class is enrolling like literally right now. We close our doors in 7 days, y'all. So it's Friday, January 24th. You have until next Friday, January 31st to apply. And we start in February and we go all the way through July. And then at the end of July, you will take your exam, you'll get certified, we'll have our live graduation, and you will be an ASC coach and you'll have everything you need to really set yourself apart in this industry as a professionally trained coach with a massive toolbox and just feeling so confident, so capable, and really effective in your coaching. Like clients aren't going to stump you anymore. You're going to feel so prepared and so capable to handle everything that comes your way. You're not going to be like tiptoeing or afraid of opening Pandora's box, or even if you do, you'll feel capable of knowing how to handle that. And so all you have to do is you have two ways. You can go to chatwithjess.com to apply directly, or you can go to jessicademarcus.com. And there is an entire page on the Art and Skill of Coaching where you can learn way more about the program. And if it's interesting to you, you can apply on that website as well. So you do have to apply. We keep our classes small on purpose so that I have an opportunity to have my eyes and ears on you and on your coaching and make sure that you get the support and guidance you need to improve and master these skills. But like I said, you have 7 days to apply, and then we won't open our doors again until closer to like the fall and holidays.
Okay, awesome. So I'm gonna, put everything in the description for anyone that wants to reach out to you. I am beyond excited and I'm already deciding what my result is going to
Love it.
be, right? We decide on our own results. And yeah, I'm really coming in to gain those hard skills. And I'm actually excited coming in at this level because I feel like I'm going to get so much more out of it because of the foundations and how much I've actually sludged through the learning through failing at this point that now I'm really excited to learn your processes. I really, just to believe that you're so gifted and you're doing exactly what you're meant to do, Jess. It just shines right out of you. And I really hope that some of the nurse coaches watching will join me and we get to be peers in your program and learn and peer coach and be watched by Jess and be scared of Jess
You know, it's
and
funny.
practice and practice.
I'm gonna add this real quick, but a lot of people say that. I just got this feedback recently that they're like, "Your marketing is so hardcore. You're such a badass." And then my clients inside of the Art and Skill of Coaching are like, "You are funny. You are so relatable. We have so much fun. Like, you know your shit, but like, we know that you have our backs and that, you are so relatable and you're so accessible and you're so kind." Like I said, I am a Philly girl. I might be rough around the edges, but like in my heart, I will pull over in the snow and help you change your tire. Wanted to I wanted to show you this for those people who want like tangible stuff. Like it's not just me spewing information and you're like feel like you're drinking from a water hose. We literally have like actual interventions scripted out. So like for example, and you'll get access if you haven't already, Amy, to this. It's literally scripted. So you can literally be like this on a coaching call in the beginning and just reading, and the client won't even know. And I did that on purpose so that in the beginning, as you're learning these tools, you don't have to remember what I said. Everything's in here. This is 200 pages of like scripted interventions, by the way. So I've really taken the best from the last 13 years of therapy, coaching, neurolinguistic programming, the world of yoga, meditation, mindfulness, and I boil down what you actually need to be a great coach, to get your clients results consistently, and to have this skill set that you can utilize in your own life and with your clients. So I'm really excited for you to start diving in. I know that you're like feeling the anticipation because we get started in just a few weeks, but I think once we start diving in, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is exactly what I needed.
Yeah, and scripts, I love a good script. I'm an auditory learner, so scripts are so helpful for me. I just find I can integrate it so much better with scripts added to the teaching. So thanks for that, Jess. And thanks for this amazing interview. And I'm so excited for you, for your journey to enter this program in a couple of weeks. And I'm really excited for anyone that's going to decide to do the same thing. And let's just end with what is one mindset shift that you believe any coach should develop to take their coaching to the next level?
Mm, I love this question. I think it would be to have a commitment to serve the client versus yourself. And what I mean by that is, again, saying the hard thing, holding the client accountable, investing in not just your business to make more money or learn a marketing technique, but invest in your skill set to be able to serve your client. This is a helping profession, even though it is a lucrative one. It still is a helping profession, and we have an obligation to serve our clients. And even though it's unregulated, I do think that that's going to change in the next 10 to 20 years. And I actually think ASC coaches, part of our vision is that we're going to be leading that charge. Like our clients will have a code of ethics, our students have like a training and a format and a process. I think that as this field continues to grow, it's one of the fastest growing fields as it continues, and it's not going anywhere. As it continues to grow and things like that, we will get regulation. And so I think it's just to remember, yes, we're in here because we want the lifestyle, the flexibility, the income, the fulfillment it provides us, but to remain in service to your client. And sometimes that does require us to do the hard thing, step into leadership, improve our skill set so that we can be of service. So, especially in the beginning, when you feel like you're fumbling and your confidence and self-esteem is taking a hit, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or a bad coach or a bad entrepreneur. It just means that you are new, you're learning, and the commitment to be of service and be the best you can for yourself and for your clients and for this industry. I would just stay anchor into that. I would just say anchor into that commitment, and just keep stumbling one foot to the next. Like it's okay. You'll eventually catch your footing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So it's about your client. It's not about you. And something I always say, in my own mind, it's a mantra, and I give it to my clients is like, I never need to be anything that I'm not in this moment for a client. And that leaves rooms for growth. That leaves room for learning. That means you're not perfect. So,
And you're not the change agent. Like I just to kind of
mm,
come back, like
that's a big one.
you don't need to be a cancer survivor to coach people on cancer. You don't need to be um, married with children to do relationship coaching. That experience is helpful, right?
Mhm.
But it's not necessary. Coaching is a skill set, right? Like I was a trauma therapist for children at 23, and statistically speaking, because we did get audits and do caseload evaluations, I was one of the most qualified and effective therapists, even though most of the therapists had children, husbands, multiple marriages, and 40 years of experience on me. But because I was so ingrained in the skill set, I was able to facilitate the client. And so also that healthy separation too, where I'm here to serve the client, but I don't need to be the client.
Yes. I love that. Right? Like think of the sports coach. They're
Yeah.
not the all-star. They're not the all-star football player. They're the
No.
all-star football player's coach,
No.
right?
Like Andy Reid, like they've been in the Super Bowl like 8 times in the last 5 years. And Andy Reid ain't on the field catching any footballs, okay? Um, so yeah, I mean, your job is to coach, not to like be that friend and offer advice and to have conquered every single area of your life or have conquered every single thing that your client wants. Like your job is to coach them to their next level, not to yours.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, if I were to sum up, it's like you get to be you. Like you get to be you and you get to be a skilled coach for your human, like your human client. They get to be them. Jess, you're a gift today. Thank you so much. I'm going to drop all the info in the description. And once again, if you want to up level your skills as a coach, if you want to learn an actual process, I personally can't think of anyone better to learn from than Jess. I'm going to be in this container learning myself, and in this for 4 years, managed to leave nursing entirely, doing this full time. And, we love this. This is what, right? Like you just, I love this shit. Like I could eat, drink, and sleep it. And I kind of do. It's
Yeah.
kind of a thing. So I can't wait to come in. This is exciting. And yeah, just going to say bye to everyone. Drop any questions that you have. I'll be checking.
Awesome.